Welcome everyone. This is Talking Time with Caffeine, episode 4 or 5, I think. Anyways, my guest today is... Introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Simeon Scott, though on the internet you probably know me as the Vacuuminator. I am the main guy behind the Kickstrike Productions YouTube channel, which produces the web series Everything Wrong with Megaforce, and the podcast Dino Charge Discussions. It's very nice to be here.
Thank you for being here. You had a topic in mind that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, I thought we could go with something that's always interested me personally is the evolution of one's interests over the years, like your hobbies, how you go from being into one thing as a kid to as a teenager to as a young adult, and I guess in our case into the future, because I can't speak for you entirely, but I'm a young adult at the moment.
I was a young adult at the... Not so much anymore.
Now you're a beautiful butterfly.
Let's start. What was your interest in the early ages of the Simon universe?
Well, I think the first thing as a kid that really grabbed me and I got into very hardcore for a while was quite honestly one of the biggest cliche things you can be into as a toddler, Thomas the Tank Engine. I was a huge Thomas collector when I was like 4 to 6, I want to say. And somewhere in there, I also got into Rescue Heroes for a little bit, because that was a thing for a few years. I think the line's still around, but it's like entirely different now, and I hardly ever see it. And then as I got older, I started getting interested in more things like Transformers, and Code Lyoko came into the picture during my years leading up to when I was 10. And around then is the time when I started getting into Power Rangers. How about you?
Well, my early days, when I was younger, I liked this... I've always been into musical shows, mostly. Like, overall, what gets me into shows, first of all, is the theme songs.
Yeah, theme songs are very important in shows.
And I like the shows with music on 'em. So when I was little, I watched these Jim Henson shows. Like when I was little, was called Fraggle Rock. They were like little Muppet things, live underground, and I also like the Muppet Babies.
Yeah, I had a couple VHSs of Muppet Babies as a kid. I never actually saw it when it was on TV, though.
And then, but I watched some of the old Disney cartoons when I was growing up, like Gummy Bears, DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, and Darkwing Duck. I was all into those things. But then, once I got into about 8th grade, those cartoons seemed starting to get a little silly to me, and that was around the time that Power Rangers came on the air, in my 8th grade year. So I started switching from those American-type cartoons over to anime or Japanese stuff around that time.
Yeah, I think everyone definitely has that initial phase where they're like, oh, all American cartoons are kiddie garbage and anime is what is for adults, and I want to be an adult. I definitely had one of those. There were a couple years where, and this was even the only time in my life I've actually been to a Disney park was during these years, where I legitimately hated Disney and thought it was such watered down kiddie crap, and I was like, oh shit, like Naruto's where it's at, because that's mature and it has real themes to it. And now looking back on that show, it is such a poorly paced mess.
Yeah. My first um, trip in the anime world was DBZ and Sailor Moon.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where you can definitely tell the age difference between us because you said you got into Power Rangers in the 8th grade. PR started in 93. I wasn't born until 97.
Yeah.
But I got into Power Rangers, I want to say, I always forget the year they were, but it was towards the tail end of Dino Thunder.
That's about 2004. 2004.
Yeah, and when SPD came on, that's when I really got into it. And SPD was the season I classify as my first season because it's the first season I watched as it aired. Because I think the Dino Thunder episodes I saw were reruns. And then I have this weird history with Power Rangers where I got into it for like a year and a half with Dino Thunder and SPD, and then I saw the trailer for Mystic Force, and I was like, Magic Power Rangers is literally the dumbest idea ever, and just dropped the show. Then when and I didn't even hear about Operation Overdrive till a few years later.
Lucky
so
you.
I dodged that bullet.
Operation Overdrive is when I stopped. Operation Overdrive is when I stopped watching Power Rangers for 3 years. I totally missed the RPM and the Jungle Fury saga. Operation Overdrive just turned me off completely.
I can imagine that having happened to a lot of people actually.
And I've been watching since the original 6 Dinozords era, on and off.
Yeah. I like I said, I completely skipped over Overdrive and Mystic Force. I started watching Jungle Fury as a kid, but it was around the 10th or 12th episode that I just lost interest. I don't even remember why. I was just kind of like, I don't really care. And I stopped watching. And then RPM was another season I didn't hear about until years later, but thankfully have gone back and seen.
I did come back a little bit during the 2010 era, which I thought, oh, they're bringing back the original series. That'd be cool. Then that was,
and then Betrayed became a meme.
Yeah, it's like they turned the original that I remember from my 8th grade year into like a 60s Batman tribute or something.
Yeah, which I like 60s Batman, but Power Rangers is not 60s Batman.
But the good news about that is I got a chance to buy the Megazord toy that I couldn't buy back then because back then I didn't have a job when I was 13, 14. I couldn't afford those expensive Megazord toys. My parents wouldn't buy them for me.
Yeah, I'm still jealous of everyone who actually has like a 2010 or Legacy Megazord. That was like right before I started to get back into toy collecting.
Yeah. It's much from what I hear, it's much smaller than the original 2093 Megazord.
Well, the thing is, it's such an improvement as far as proportion wise.
Yeah.
That I don't even mind that, because if you look at the original Megazord, there is literally no spatial gap in between the legs. They're just 2 giant blocks that are next to each other.
But I don't think they made a Dragon Zord or Titanus for the remake of 2010.
They did make a Titanus for 2010. They never made a Dragon Zord though.
That was my favorite toy Zord back then, was that Dragon Zord combination things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Alright, so what about your teen years? What was your...
Well, my teen years, like I already said, that's when I started to get into Power Rangers and then stopped on and off several times. I think that phase of me hating American cartoons and being an anime guy or at least trying to be an anime guy because I really didn't understand that there was more stuff other than like what was on Cartoon Network at the time. Um, uh, that was like around when I was 14 through 15, I want to say. Um, uh, I'm trying to think. When did Kamen Rider Wizard come out? Because that's when I got into Tokusatsu. And got back into Power Rangers.
What's that? What's
Kamen Rider Wizard? I'm trying to think of when the air date for that was.
Never saw it. So I can't tell you. I think I saw the. I think I watched the original. If it is what I think it is, I think I saw the original Kamen Rider. Was that like the American Master Rider version?
Oh, the Master Rider wasn't the original Kamen Rider. That was an adaptation of Black RX. The original Kamen Rider aired in '79, I think.
Well, I mean, but that was the same, like the version of it in America, or something.
Yeah, that was an American adaptation of Black RX, but it was the first American series. Yeah, Wizard started in 2012, so it would have been like
3 years ago.
Yeah. So I would have been 16. That's when I got into. That's when I got back into Power Rangers, thanks to mainly Linkara's History of Power Rangers. I was big into Linkara at the time, and around the time he posted the Wild Force review, that's when I found out History of Power Rangers was a thing, and I watched all of it and learned a lot more about Power Rangers than I ever knew as a kid. I didn't even know the Zordon era was a thing until I found History of Power Rangers, oddly enough. But I do remember watching an episode of MMPR as a kid. I didn't know there was like a continuity there.
Yeah. The whole Zordon era was my teen years. I graduated high school around the Power Rangers in Space era time.
Ah, that was a good time. A lot of people love to praise In Space. I think it's good, but it's not like amazing. But I do love the way it kind of wraps up everything.
Yeah, at the time at least.
Yeah.
I like the storyline in Space about the redeeming this sister thing.
Yeah. Astronema is / Corone is definitely one of the greatest characters in PR.
And that's around also the time that I mainly, at least before, I mainly got in the series for the storyline and stuff. But around my teen years, I also got around for another reason: hot actresses.
Yeah, that definitely does happen at some points with Toku, where you're like, I'm just watching for the pretty people.
And I had a crush on Ashley back in the day.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And also, my other show I used to watch back in the, it was a series called on Friday night called TGIF.
Wasn't that like a time slot?
Yeah, it was on Friday nights from 8 to 10, where all these sitcoms on ABC were on. And one of my favorite shows at the time, and still one of my favorites, was this show called Boy Meets World.
Oh yeah, Boy Meets World is actually one of my favorite shows from when I was a kid. I caught all of it on reruns on, it was either Disney Channel or ABC Family as a kid. I know I used to watch a ton of TGIF stuff on ABC Family when I was younger.
It was probably on both, because since Disney bought ABC in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And of course I had a crush on Topanga, Daniel Fishel, who I've been watching the new spin-off series Girl Meets World, and she still looks hot, even as a mom now. She looks hot, and she's about real life. She's about 1 year younger than me.
Really?
Yeah.
I always wanted to give Girl Meets World a shot, but whenever I hear stuff about it, it keeps sounding like it can't decide if it wants to be its own thing or just a nostalgia fest for Boy Meets World.
It's a little both. there's tribute. There's mainly the cast is mainly the high schoolers now. They're kids, but they also have throwbacks, of the original cast. Mainly the original cast consists of just Corey and Topanga, the parents, and maybe a few guest appearances here and there. Yeah, but I was worried about it at first because it's a Disney show, so it's can't be as intense as the ABC version was, because Disney's more for kids than.
Yeah, I actually remember it was either one episode or it was a two-parter, but Boy Meets World in the later seasons had an episode about alcoholism.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy for what was supposed to be a kids show.
Yeah, but like ABC can probably in prime time can do more than Disney can. More.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else I could really touch on? Oh yeah. Unlike most people think you get into comics when you're a little kid, and then you kind of grow out of it, and then you get back into it when you're in your 20s or 30s. I actually didn't get into comics until I was around 14. Have you heard of a YouTube channel called Geekvolution?
No.
Oh, well, they're basically this channel of a bunch of different guys that their main focus is comic books and superheroes and that kind of stuff. And I can't remember when it was exactly, but on and off they've had series where they review all the books that have all the superhero books that have come out in a week. And around the time they first started doing that, it kind of piqued my interest, and excuse me. That's kind of when it kind of hit me that comics actually sound a lot more interesting than I ever gave them credit for, because I always liked superhero cartoons as a kid. Like Justice League, the animated series, is still one of my favorite shows of all time. But I always thought the comics were much more goofy and kiddie, and they never really grew out of the Silver Age. I quickly learned that there's actually a lot of interesting storylines going on these days. You just have to know how to navigate it. And that's kind of when I started getting into comics, and I've been reading on a month-to-month basis ever since.
Yeah, I never got into comics that much as a kid hardly at all. I did a few comic books, but they're mainly the Disney versions of the comics. But we only had one comic book store in where I grew up at, and
go ahead.
And that guy there was very strict. You couldn't sneak peek read anything; you had to buy it. And so I got kicked out.
I never got that practice. Why would you sell a product that people may or may not know if they actually want to have around for a while, if they can at least read the first couple pages and see what it's like?
I got kicked out of that place a few times because of that.
Wow. Yeah, some stores do that, and that's just a practice that boggles my mind. Yeah. And then
you ever read
the whole thing with comic book stores is, especially in like the more southern states, they are very hard to come across. Like my store is in a city over, and we have to drive like 45 minutes. It's just to get there. That's not counting however much time I spend there and then the time coming back.
Yeah.
So I only go once a month.
Yeah, and then when I was back in the comics again, I was starting to read the Japanese comics where you read them backwards.
Oh, manga, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always, like, it's like I said, I never really understood the full expansiveness of anime and manga. I know I mispronounced it earlier. Sorry, viewers, if anyone got ticked off by that. Um, but I never realized just how expansive and how much of a huge industry it is over in Japan until the last couple of years. But I always wanted to try it. Like, I had that phase, like a lot of the kids from the past 10, 15 years have had, of getting into Naruto or One Piece or some other shonen series for a couple of years. But I never really went beyond that, though. I've now been watching a couple of anime YouTubers. You may or may not have heard of them, Digibro and Demolition D, and I've learned a lot about just anime as an industry and as a fandom in the past few months since I started watching them.
You ever seen You ever seen any of the on YouTube, any of the abridged series?
I've heard of them, but since most of them are for shows I've never seen, I don't want to watch them just because it would either spoil the experience or I wouldn't find the jokes funny until I'd seen the actual show.
Yeah, you should know what you're watching before you watch the shortened, funny version of it.
Yeah. I do watch Sword Art Online abridged, and I have seen all the episodes of that Naruto abridged series that had like 10 episodes and then stopped. And I thought those were both pretty funny.
Yeah, you ever, speaking of Japanese stuff, you ever seen all three versions of it? And because one series, I read the manga, saw the subtitle version and the dub version, just so I could compare them and see it.
I've never really done that with anything. I either usually just go one or the other. I'm not strictly a dub guy. I'm not strictly a sub guy. I'm not strictly a manga guy. It's just whichever piques my interest first.
Yeah, I like to. One series I like to see them out and see, hey, different here, because I was watching the Digimon series, and I seen like. I watched the American version of this one scene. It's very funny and comedic, and then I saw the same scene in the subtitle. It was more serious, like it was more serious, not as funny.
Well, that is because Digimon is an anime that is very targeted towards kids, and that's a big thing with anime in general. Is Japan has completely different standards on what you can and cannot show kids than we do. Like their freaking age of consent is like 16 or 17 over there.
Yeah, I was reading this Japanese comic. It was like almost adult themed, and then I was, at least over here it would be. Then and apparently in Japan it's for like 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, fast forward in time a little bit. What are your interests?
In like the next couple of years, you mean?
Like now, next couple of years, since you're still in your teen. Technically, you're still in your teen years, so.
Yeah, I am 18, but yeah, still technically teen years. Kind of languishing in the middle of that and being a young adult. Right now, I'm very heavily into Power Rangers and Tokusatsu, with Transformers being my main side interest. Although Lego is starting to rival it, because I bought a lot of Lego sets this year so far. I'm very much a Toku fan just because it kind of sucked me in over time. Like I said, it started with watching History of Power Rangers and just learning about that show, and then I decided to actually start watching Power Rangers, and through that I met people, and then I started watching Sentai and Kamen Rider, and now I just know so many people in the Toku fandom that it is just kind of my life, that I'm just that guy at work who wants to talk about a Japanese show where people are in spandex and rubber suits.
spandex.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but I'm not like defensive or trying to fight that. I legitimately love these shows because I feel the thing Japanese superhero shows have always had above American ones is they are very forthright with their themes and whatnot. Whereas in America we like to be more subtle. In Japan, we're blatantly like um, our heroes fight for truth, justice, and the sake of bringing smiles to little children everywhere. And just that blatant kind of philosophy of we're here to keep peace and justice throughout the world is what makes me like superheroes.
Yeah, I think the reason I like Japanese was more than American ones, at least growing up, because Japanese has a more overdeveloping storyline, as in mostly American things, whereas one episode hit wonders, and one episode never connects to the other episodes. Like, oh, new threat, blah blah blah, conclusion, then next episode, totally forgot what happened in the last episode.
Well, it does feel like that at times, but it really does depend on the show these days. Because you'll have things like the original Transformers was very much just a show of the story of the week type show, but you fast forward to stuff like the last two Transformers shows we had, Transformers Animated and Transformers Prime, and those shows are very deeply ingrained with overarching plots and telling specific stories.
Like, I'm into the... You ever watch the S.H.I.E.L.D. series?
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
I tried giving it a shot. I watched like the first 5 episodes when those were airing. It just wasn't for me.
I've been watching the whole thing since the thing. My friend got me into when I was living with my friend. He got me into the Marvel Universe thing and all the movies, and like I said, I like how they're all interconnected, all the movies and series.
Well, yeah, I still like the movies and stuff. Like, I watched Agent Carter as it aired, and I'm definitely gonna watch that Daredevil show because I love Daredevil. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just something that, as a story, it couldn't really grab me. And that's the thing is, I do like the idea of interconnected continuities, but if a specific story doesn't grab me, then I'm not going to watch it. I'm just going to read the spoilers so I can know the important stuff.
True. The thing I used to do as growing up, I used to write intercontinuity fan fictions. Like, I had this whole series in the late 90s during the space era when I first got the internet in my area. I didn't really have the internet till like late 90s. And that was just the library or school. I did this whole mini-series about me as a Power Ranger finding Tommy's coin from the 18th century.
Ah, so you were a self-insert type of guy.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to try and write fan fictions, but the thing is, I have so much other stuff going on in my life all the time, and it's something where I would get obsessed with it, where no, it has to be perfect and it has to be done this way, and that's just a dark corner of my mind I do not want to put into something I can never make money off of.
Yeah, I'm getting to that now. I'm trying to write a book series. Been trying to write forever, but I've always been a writer. Even as a little kid, I write these little short stories about adventures that me and my friends were having, fictional adventures. There's an underground cavern underneath our elementary school we explored. So I was always in the writing.
Yeah, I'm very much a writer too, though I've always thought books would never be my thing just because I have trouble actually reading novels. I'm very much an audiobook guy because I can't stay focused on books.
I love audio. I love audiobooks too.
Yeah. And so I definitely would like to be more of like a TV or film writer, but those are very hard industries to break into.
But yeah, I read a lot of books because I used to live 2 hours away from my work, so I had I didn't have a car, so I rode the bus. So that's plenty of time. I had like 2 hours to I didn't want to interact with the people on the bus because they were all loud and crazy most of the time. So I just like grab the book, I might look back and like head down, start reading.
Yeah.
For 2 hours.
Yeah, that's. Oh, were you gonna say something?
Well, yeah, just read for 2 hours and 2 hours back again, like 4 hour round trip. I read through like I read through like tons of novels and series during that time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a crazy amount of time to just be reading. Like, you probably read more books in your years of going to school than I would in my entire life if I didn't have an Audible account.
Yeah, I just got my Audible like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I guess unless you have anything else you wanted to bring up, the only other place we could really go is like where we see ourselves going in the future.
Well, my go to my current time now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought we had done that a little, but go ahead.
Well, like after I graduated into my adult phases, I switched off. I used to be like into dramas and sitcoms, you know. Still am a little bit, not as much as I was, because some of them lost my interest after TJF went off the air in 2000, and Boy Meets World went off the air. I was mainly went into working, and about 2009 I started doing YouTube, like I'm doing now. That's my current interest right now. Making videos. At first I thought YouTube was mainly when I first started YouTube, I thought it was just a chance to see movies and stuff that I didn't have to pay for. Because that's what most people did on YouTube back then. They just...
Yeah, there. I remember for a few years back there was a YouTube channel that had every Disney movie on it, and it wasn't taken down for years. Like that's how I saw Tron for the first time. That's how I saw The Sword and the Stone for the first time. Like that channel was legendary in dodging copyright.
Yeah, before YouTube went all banning crazy.
Yeah.
But then I started watching bloggers, and I started being a blogger mainly. At the time when I first started, I had totally different plans for my YouTube channel. But then I got in an argument with some people. For the longest time, I was totally shy of the camera. I always thought my picture looked terrible in photos and stuff, so I went behind the camera. I started taking pictures, taking videos, because I was shy and thought it looked stupid. But then, after that argument with my former people, my anger and stuff trumped my shyness. I went up there and started ranting in front of the camera. And then, as the years progressed, I less ranting and more just talking and stuff. And I started getting into Let's Plays on the YouTube and like a bridge series. I even made a little 4-part bridge series about Zelda, the first Nintendo game.
Really, that's interesting.
It's called the Legend of Zelda Abridged. I can send you the link in Skype when we're done.
Yeah, I may give that a look later. Yeah, my YouTube history is actually something that's almost as crazy as how my personal interests have changed over the years. I remember back when I first started out, I was one of those people who was doing it because it was just after the '07 Transformers movie toy reviewer boom. And so I was one of those people going into it going, I want to get rich playing with toys too! So I did terrible toy reviews. Like, I'm talking, you couldn't see anything. I was constantly pausing and going ums and ers. I was singing this weird weird song that like it sounded like a 5-year-old came up with while I was transforming the toys. I was just terrible at it, and I did that for 2 years straight. And one day I just kind of realized, wow, my videos are really shit. I need to change focus. So I started trying to do a bunch of different things for a couple of years. I tried doing comic reviews. I tried doing more discussion-based videos, and now I'm kind of at this area where with Kickstrike Productions, the reason I made a separate channel for Kickstrike Productions besides my own personal one is because it is very much something where I have a set plan. I won't reveal how crazy in depth it is or how far forward we are planned, but there is definitely a lot of stuff we have planned for the future, a lot of stuff we want to do, and it's not just going to be me. Over time, we're going to start bringing in more people, and I do want it to become not necessarily like a YouTube network, but more like a independent production house that's based out of YouTube.
Yeah, I was hoping that my channel would a little help on my channel with my class, and that's my YouTube name is my city and my graduating class from Vandalia. I'm from Vandalia, Ohio, and we all graduated in 1998. So I was hoping, we get eventually together, but apparently most of my old friends are very camera shy and don't like cameras.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of the people you know as a kid are that way.
And I thought I was the shy one back in school.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, everyone loves being loud and outgoing till you start pointing a camera at them, and then they go, "Oh crap, someone's gonna see this later."
Yeah, that was my nickname. And when I used to go to church camp, I used to take all these crazy pictures with stuff before people could realize I was there. They called me my nickname was the stealth photographer. I'm like, snap, really fast. I always got the best shots of people sometimes.
Nice. Yeah, I never really had an interest in photography specifically. I'm more of a guy who's more interested in the You okay over there?
Yeah, chronic coffee and stuff.
Oh, sorry to hear that. But I've always been interested in YouTube more from the base creative level of writing the video and coming up with the idea for a new series. And I've always been a story guy.
Me too.
Like right now I'm doing primarily review-based stuff, but I do eventually in the next couple of years, once we have the capability to do so, I want to move into doing stuff that has more storylines in it, that's more of a web series and not a review show with story elements in it.
But kind of like what the Database Ranger's doing.
Yeah, he's kind of like at the halfway point of where I want to be. He's a review show that has a storyline to it, that's based around the review show. I eventually want to get to a point, and this is far down the line for us at Kickstrike, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but whatever, it's my YouTube channel. I eventually want to get to a point where we are doing shows that are primarily story-based. And if there is a review in it, it's mostly just there to supplement a scene or two.
Yeah. I had plans too, but some of the things you can't do by yourself, that you need a wider range of audience to do stuff, and that's where I'm at right now. All these ideas, but mainly since I'm soloing most of this stuff.
Yeah, that's always the roadblock you hit on YouTube. I have this great idea, but I either don't have the equipment or the crew to pull it off.
But it look like you're starting to get the crew together.
Yeah, that's definitely something I need to work on in the next couple of years. I want to be able to get funding for the channel. Eventually, we're going to start a Patreon. We just don't have enough subscribers yet to justify it. But I want to start getting funding for the channel so I can pay for things like actors and better equipment. Right now, I've actually for the past couple of months been saving up for a new computer so I can have something that can handle more intense edits and adding effects to things.
Yeah, I'm thinking of getting the computer too. My computer's kind of old now. I'm waiting for my tax refund to get back, so I can use that to get it. Because that's one of my main sources of income right now. This is my tax refund, because my job, but after bills and stuff, there's barely anything there most of the time.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is for a lot of people these days, with the minimum wage being so low and whatnot. And I don't mean to get into political stuff, but
yeah, that could be another 3-hour conversation right there.
Oh yeah, you get me started about my political pet peeves, and we gonna be here all night. And probably no one will ever watch your channel or mine ever again.
But you have stuff to do, other podcasts to go on.
Yeah.
So, but your other thing, if you ever need any help with your productions, give me a call.
Oh, I definitely do that, man. Thanks for the offer.
Thanks. And if you want to be a guest on here again.
Yeah, it's pretty cool time. I've enjoyed talking to you about this. This isn't a topic I often get to touch on with other people, so this was fun.
Alright, so well, you wanna get any closing remarks about yourself, your channel, or anything before we go?
If you guys want to look me up, I'm primarily known as the Vacuuminator on the internet, although I've started using my real name a lot more frequently now, which is Simeon Scott. I don't mind stating it at all. We're in an age where being afraid to say your full name on the internet is borderline paranoia.
Plus,
honestly.
Plus, people can look it up anyways. Most people, can find out.
Exactly. And I'm very, as I've said, I'm very much into tokusatsu and Transformers, and I'm starting to get on both a new phase where I'm into Lego and Star Wars. Not Lego Star Wars, but those things separately. So if you guys are interested in any of those things, look me up. Maybe you'll be interested in some of the content I make over on Kickstrike Productions. We have some fan trailers and a few fan intro stuff was what we were doing really early on. Now we've got Everything Wrong with Megaforce, which is currently on hiatus because the time I was putting into that video is now being put into getting a driver's license, because that's something I need to do really soon. And Dino Charge Discussions, which is a weekly podcast where myself and my co-host Jacob Brody, aka Database Ranger of Database Ranger's Power Reviews, talk about every episode of Power Rangers Dino Charge as they come out for a half hour to an hour, or I don't think we've ever gone over an hour. We might have, I'm not sure. But it's an in-depth podcast discussion about the episode, kind of like what this is with general topics. And I also have my personal YouTube channel where I do frequent, but there's no set schedule. I do vlogs over there just talking about whatever random stuff is on my mind and what's going on in my life. So yeah, give me a look if anyone's interested.
I look forward to hearing your next Dino Charge review when it finally airs on YouTube. You're going to be recording it after our session here?
Yeah, I'm going to be recording it in about a couple hours, actually.
Well, everyone have a good time. Tell us your interest down in the comments below of your evolving TV shows, comic books, movies throughout your ages, and what you're into now, and what you were into as a baby, or whatever. And as always, enjoy the randomness. See ya.
Bye, people.